Today, let's talk about the F-16, the fighter jet that strikes fear into the hearts of the Russians. On August 4th, Ukrainian President Zelensky welcomed this new addition at the Vasilkiv Air Base in Kiev. The Russian military immediately withdrew their glide bombs that same day, likely fearing their Su-34s would become easy targets. By August 5th, two F-16s, painted in Ukrainian colors, showed off their skills over Odessa. The Russian military was in panic, claiming their positions were devastated by the Ukrainian F-16s. However, the Ukrainian side quickly responded, saying it was actually their artillery and drones that caused the damage, and the Russians were just blaming the F-16s to save face. It's clear the Russians were truly scared. Now, let's look at the origin of these F-16s. Ukraine received a total of 10, with 6 from the Netherlands and 4 from Denmark. Don't underestimate these second-hand jets. After being upgraded by the US, their combat power is top-notch, compared to Pakistan's F-16 Block 50+. With further upgrades, they became the F-16V. Against Russian MiG-29s, Su-27s, and Su-30s, it's a one-sided battle. Even the Su-34Ms would have to be cautious. With the support of an AWACS, Ukraine's F-16s could even take on the Su-35. As for the much-hyped Su-57, it would likely stay in the back, letting the Su-35S and MiG-31 take the hits. Let's talk about the F-16's black tech. The AN/APG-68 pulse Doppler radar has a detection range of 300 kilometers, outclassing the radars used in Russian Su-27s, Su-30s, and Su-34s. Only the Su-35's Urbis-E radar, with a range of 350 kilometers, is comparable. However, Ukraine is already planning to upgrade these F-16 radars to AESA, further boosting their performance. The electronic warfare equipment is also impressive. The Danish Terma company's PDIS Plus system, including IRCM and RFCM modules, use chaff and flares to deceive incoming missiles, whether infrared or radar-guided. The integrated AN/AAR-60 V2 missile launch detection system, abbreviated MILDS, can identify if a missile has locked onto the plane. Additionally, they are equipped with the Electronic Combat Integrated Pylon System Plus, ECIPS Plus, an advanced infrared missile attack warning system made by Israel. These sensors, mounted on special pylons under the wings, detect incoming infrared missile attacks. Decoy flares and chaff are also deployed from the same pylons to mislead enemy missiles. Electronic warfare jammers emit signals to disrupt enemy radar and communication systems, making it difficult for the enemy to effectively target and attack the F-16s. Trying to take down an F-16 in a complex electromagnetic environment is impossible for the Russians. The weaponry is also top-notch. The AIM-120C7 missile can be launched from over 100 kilometers away, featuring active radar guidance and digital signal processing for excellent anti-jamming and small target detection capabilities. In close combat, there are the IRIS-T and AIM-9X Sidewinder, top-of-the-line infrared-guided air-to-air missiles, combined with a pilot's helmet-mounted display for 360-degree attacks. The JHMCS helmet system provides easy access to target information, making both long-range and close combat engagements effortless. The Russian R-series air-to-air missiles may have similar ranges to the F-16s, but they can't compete in terms of electronic warfare and multi-target attack capabilities. Western sanctions have left the Russians scrambling, even relying on civilian ships for their rocket engine control systems. Moreover, Russian military tactics are outdated, unable to keep pace with modern network-centric warfare. Their vaunted Su-35 and Su-57 lack the advanced network warfare support, rendering much of their performance useless. Ukraine's F-16s, supported by two Swedish ASC-890 AWACS with Readies AESA radar, have no trouble detecting and tracking targets quickly and accurately. In reality, these are just for show. Ukraine has long been connected to NATO's data link, ensuring seamless intelligence sharing. In May, Singapore's defense minister mentioned plans to purchase more F-35s because the F-35 has already proven effective in NATO operations over Ukraine. If this is true, Russian radars might not stand a chance. Even with the F-35's battlefield situational awareness, the F-16 can easily avoid enemy radars, quietly take advantageous positions, and catch the Russians off guard. The most impressive part is NATO's C4ISR system, which acts like the eyes and ears on the battlefield. As soon as Russian jets take off, NATO is aware of everything, instantly assigning tasks to Allied aircraft and air defense systems, even calculating the best times for the F-16s to strike and retreat. On the Russian side, they have the A-50U AWACS and the Tu-214R electronic warfare aircraft, but these are almost primitive in comparison. The A-50U still uses mechanical scanning radar from the last century, which isn't even as good as Turkey's E-737. Embarrassingly, the A-50U can even be shot down by their own S-200 missiles, showing how low its early warning capabilities are. It's said that it can only coordinate a few aircraft at a time, which is quite pathetic. Facing the highly integrated command, control, and intelligence sharing between Ukrainian forces and NATO, the Russians may not admit it, but the Kremlin's recent rants against the F-16s show that they're seriously worried. In response, the Russians have been busy upgrading their Su-30 SM-2s, equipping them with long-range R-37M missiles boasting a 300-kilometer range, Mach 6 speed, and a 60-kilogram warhead, trying to intimidate the F-16s. But on the battlefield, these might just be for show. If they can't win in combat, they resort to dirty tricks. On the surface, they might appear to lure the enemy in, but in reality, they have anti-air missiles lying in wait, ready to ambush the F-16s. The Russian plan involves using cruise missiles and drones as bait to lure F-16s into a trap, then striking with the high-altitude R-37M missiles. Even top agents from the GRU are involved, monitoring everything from the production line to the airfields, not missing even what the F-16 pilots eat. Last year, the Russians mobilized their entire intelligence system, from the GRU to the FSB, and various military departments, all focusing on the F-16. They're not just watching every F-16 headed to Ukraine, but also monitoring the pilots and ground crew. Even in Romania, any training or transfer related to the F-16 is under close scrutiny by Russian intelligence. Meanwhile, the Russians are using their over-the-horizon radar network to track the F-16s. Although Ukraine destroyed several Russian radar stations in May, the Voronezh M in Orsk and the Voronezh DM in Armavir, many still operate in central and western Russia. These radars may not be very accurate, but they can still monitor large areas of western Ukrainian airspace and pinpoint the general location of the F-16s. To compensate for the lack of precision, the Russians are coordinating drones with their radars. Once the over-the-horizon radar detects a suspicious target, a drone is sent to scout and pinpoint the location. The GRU is also studying the flight characteristics of the F-16, looking at its speed and flight patterns compared to the MiG-29, Su-24, and Su-27, hoping to identify the F-16s based on these differences. The Russians have been making frequent small moves in their military preparations. After the July 8th bombing of a Kiev hospital, the frequency of their cruise missile usage dropped sharply. This unusual silence likely means they are stockpiling missiles for a future large-scale strike on F-16 bases. Their plan might involve disrupting Ukraine's air defense systems before the F-16s go into action, then launching a saturated attack to destroy as many F-16s as possible, ideally taking out some pilots and ground crew as well. Moreover, Russia has even put a bounty on the F-16s, offering $170,000 for each one shot down and $1 million for capturing a pilot. So, how should Ukraine use these powerful weapons? First, the F-16 can take down strategic bombers like the Tu-22, as well as MiG-31s and Su-35s that might launch missile attacks on Ukraine. Secondly, the F-16s can move to the front lines to establish air superiority and shoot down Su-34s, dropping FAB glide bombs. Lastly, the F-16s can perform high-altitude ground attacks. Initially, the Ukrainian military will station the F-16s in the southern regions of Odessa and Kherson. When the time is right, they'll move them to the eastern front to support ground forces in launching counterattacks on Donetsk or Zaporizhzhia. In Russia, the Ukrainian F-16s might achieve some victories, likely shooting down a few Russian aircraft. However, to secure funding for developing sixth-generation fighters, the American company Lockheed Martin might downplay the F-16's achievements. The F-16s could target Su-34s, dropping bombs from high altitudes and support small-scale counterattacks in Donetsk or Zaporizhzhia. If these initial probing attacks go well, by late August or early September, we might see larger Ukrainian offensives supported by the F-16s, potentially targeting the Crimean Peninsula. Before that, Ukraine would reinforce its troops in Donetsk or Zaporizhia, achieving some small victories and then suddenly launch an offensive towards Crimea, possibly destroying the Kerch Bridge. The best-case scenario would be the F-16s shooting down a MiG-31 or Tu-22 inside Russian territory during a missile attack, sending a strong message to the Russian aerospace forces. For the F-16s to perform well on the Ukrainian battlefield, it's evident that the US and NATO are not afraid of Russia's nuclear threats. These advanced aircraft can immediately link up with NATO's command centers, coordinating missiles, drones, and cruise missiles. The Russian forces won't have anywhere to hide. If they go all out with hundreds of F-16s, Russian tanks and missiles, no matter how many, won't stand a chance. This situation leaves Russia in a difficult position. They can either admit defeat or go all out against Western forces. Ukraine, on the other hand, is eager and preparing for a major counteroffensive. The arrival of the F-16 signals a potential turning point in the war. However, with only a few aircraft, this won't dramatically change the war immediately. For now, they need to hide at airports or relocate to Romania to survive. But as they hold on and accumulate more NATO-supplied F-16s, it won't be long before they start to wear down Russia's heavy mechanized forces. In the short term, the F-16's biggest achievements might be maintaining the current balance on the battlefield. The F-16s are high maintenance and require extensive operational, technical, intelligence, and logistics support, far more complex than during World War II, the Korean War, or the Vietnam War. Ukraine's few newly trained pilots alone might not be enough and may need the guidance of experienced NATO pilots. Although the F-16 is known as the universal fighter, its intricate structure demands high maintenance standards. Ukraine currently only has 10 F-16s, but if they receive 143, they would need over 500 personnel trained for 1 to 2 years to maintain them properly. Until then, Ukraine will have to rely on foreign aid for technical support. Infrastructure is another hurdle. As a modern aircraft, the F-16 requires specific runway lengths and qualities, along with hangars and fuel supply facilities. For takeoff, the F-16 needs a 2,400-meter runway, which many small Ukrainian airports cannot provide. Initially scheduled for June delivery, the F-16s had to be delayed until July because the infrastructure wasn't up to standard. The delays were due to inadequate hardware, and to make matters worse, these facilities are prime targets for Russian attacks. Without proper support facilities, the F-16s could end up as mere showpieces. Let's talk about the issue of ammunition reserves, which is a real headache. In air combat, ammunition is in heavy use. Let's take the AIM-120 for example. For 10 F-16s to carry out a week's worth of combat patrols, at least 50 missiles are needed. If the Ukrainian forces want to take the initiative, the consumption of missiles would increase several times over. Ukraine certainly can't handle such a high demand on its own, and relying on Western allies to supply enough is also uncertain. In the long run, if Ukraine doesn't make a breakthrough in domestic ammunition production, it will have to rely on external supplies during wartime, significantly affecting the independent combat capability of the Ukrainian Air Force. Therefore, introducing the F-16 is only the first step for Ukraine. Turning it into a mature combat force will inevitably be a long-term battle. For now, the F-16s can only take off temporarily from airports in western Ukraine, with maintenance and repairs being carried out at airports in Romania and Poland.